You are watching Stellar.
Stellar. Stellar. Spotlight on success.
That's we need to have you live for every one of these, Craig. That was awesome. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Spotlight on Success. Today, I have a couple of great guests here with me today, including Craig Newman, who you've already seen, and Aaron Zimmerman. Hi, guys. How's it going?
Good to be here. Thank you.
Today, we're going to talk about online event. I guess you'd call it franchises, series, things that you do as an online event and build on. And the two guys that are here today are just successful and interesting in their own right. And I'll tell you a little bit about them. But also, as a group, we have actually created a series that has been on Stellar, and we'll tell you all about it. There are other people that are going to be joining us that I think have either done similar things or are thinking of doing similar things. So we'd certainly like to have this be as interactive as possible with comments, questions, suggestions. All of that is possible in the chat room on Stellar. If you're watching it on Twitter and Facebook, I think we'll try to monitor that and bring the questions back to us as well. But welcome to everybody. I'm so happy to have you all and have the chance to talk to you guys today. And thank you for the song, Craig.
This is the single greatest moment of my week. I would like to thank Aaron for bringing his big smile and wonderful brain, and Jim for this world that you've created. We're all just living in it, buddy.
Well, I guess so, Craig. I'm not sure what that means, but sure, let's go with that. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest today. For those of you watching, Craig Newman is a fine guitarist, piano player, and singer, and I can tell you that from personal experience. He and I have performed together on multiple occasions and across the, not country, but across in a few different places.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, that's not even his profession. He's actually a 20-year veteran agent and the vice president and head of performing arts at APA, representing clients like Frankie Valli, Bachman Cummings, Plain White Tees, Chef Robert Irvine, Bruce Campbell, and Power Rangers Live. And he is the originator and co-creator of the Watch With virtual co-watch series, which is what we're here to talk about today. Please welcome, if you haven't already, Craig Newman. Hello, Craig.
Oh, Craig, it's so great to see you. Woo! Well, thank you. Seriously, thank you all so much for the rousing applause. I am honored to be here. That's some really nice stuff that you've said already, Jim. You flatter me, and I can't wait to dig in and jump into all this great stuff. And when you say my resume like that in 30 seconds, I just feel so accomplished. So,
well, you are accomplished, so that's not difficult. All right, our next guest, also very accomplished. He is the vice president of programming and marketing at the Tobin Center for the Performing Arts in San Antonio, Texas, where he has been for some time now, more than 7 years. And he has booked every publicly ticketed show since the Tobin Center that they've ever had, including Sir Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, Santana, Harry Connick Jr., David Byrne, Lionel Richie, Dolly Parton, Alice Cooper, and hundreds more. And he's also helped create Tobin Entertainment, which is a full-service promotion company that presents shows all over the country. There are more than 35 shows in the past 3 years, and that includes a year where I bet you didn't really add any to the total of the number of shows presented. So, and is also one of the collaborators, conspirators, etc., on the Watch With Series 2. Everybody, please welcome Aaron Zimmerman.
Okay, that was like that was a weak Craig applause, but I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about this too. This is cool.
Awesome. So,
and not as accomplished as Craig, but you know.
Well, you're not as old as him either, so you know it's fine. You got some time to catch up, and neither of you is as old as me. So, yeah. So let's just jump right into it. Let's talk about the Watch With series, and I want to go all the way back to the origin story on this.
Sure.
And I want to use it after we kind of lay down the groundwork of what it is and where we're going with it. As a jumping off point for the concept of an online event franchise in general, because I'm of the view, I'll put this out there as a structure. I'm of the view that online events are in what I call the Kitty Hawk phase. We're in the very, very, very beginning, right? Like the early days of flight, right? When they were sailing across the dunes in North Carolina in something that looked as much like a bicycle with wings as an airplane. We're in the early days, and I think what we're seeing is that There certainly are events that have been done online because there was no way to do them in person over the last year of the pandemic. Everyone that I'm talking to is thinking very seriously about hybrid events, meaning there's an in-person event happening, and so you put up a good, audio video rig and you make it available to people who aren't in the room. But then there's this other kind of event, which I think of as an online first event, right? And this is an event that may have in-person attendees or it may not, but the idea is that it's designed from the ground up to be an online event. And I think what we're seeing now and what we've experienced a little bit with Watch With is that you can not only do an event that way, but you can actually create a theme. You can create a through line or a thread that allows you to kind of keep iterating on that idea and building on it. And this is a very valuable concept and one that I'm encouraging everybody out there in the online event creation world and the live entertainment world to take very seriously. So there's a lot to talk about. Why don't we just start? Craig, I think it's appropriate to start with you, to go back to the origin story of this and the first phone call that we had about this
Absolutely
a while ago now. Yeah.
And I want to put this into the context of, I could talk obviously from the agent standpoint, but with Aaron and Jim and what you all do in the business, I know you'll be able to agree with what I'm saying. Nobody saw March coming last year. Nobody saw our business turning upside down as quickly as it would wind up turning upside down. It was early March when I got the very first phone call that I had to move a sold out show in San Francisco because of this cruise ship that was off the coast and Then I had to move a show in Seattle the next week, and then another one, and then another 10, and then another 15. And, behind every, I like to say behind every good Craig is a brilliant wife. And my wife took me aside and she said, "Hun, you are going to have to think fast. You're a creative guy. Let's start figuring out things that we can do if, God forbid, all the shows go away this year." So we were really early on, Jim, thinking about things like, how do we keep our artists engaged with their fan base? How do we keep them paid in some manner? How do we keep all of this, the ball continuing to roll when there is such a heavy, heavy burden happening in the world? And yeah, it was early April. I had already been experimenting with things like drive-in shows and ways that we could still do live, but we really knew that virtual was going to play a big part. And people were starting to get in front of Facebook Live with their guitar and just play for their audience. And I said, okay, that's one thing, but how can we take this a few levels deeper? I have represented not just bands over the years, but I've had a lot of crossover clients. APA is a full-service talent agency. We have literary, branding, talent, TV, film, etc. And I've worked well with the other agents. So, for example, and this is where Aaron comes into the picture, I've had a very successful touring show with Bruce Campbell and the Evil Dead films where Aaron would promote Bruce coming to a theater, showing the film, and doing a Q&A and eventually a meet and greet with the audience. And we were selling these out everywhere we were going in 2019. So I thought to myself, is there something we can capitalize in the virtual space? And I had this idea for basically what amounts to a co-watch. Bruce has such a big personality. If you've seen Evil Dead once, you've seen it 100 times. Why wouldn't you pay a little extra to actually watch Evil Dead while Bruce is watching it with you and telling you the most incredible behind the scenes stories? So that was sort of the light bulb that went off. It started with Bruce because I knew that he would be open to a new concept. I called him up, I pitched it to him. He said to me, "Craig, run wild, have fun with it." So I said, okay, great. It was soon thereafter that I involved both Aaron and Jim. I needed someone from the promoter side who had worked on Bruce shows before to tell me if I was crazy or not. Thankfully, Aaron told me I was crazy, but in the best possible way. And then I needed somebody who I trusted in the virtual space who was developing something, which Jim was doing with his team and Stellar. So I felt like it was a real perfect storm having both Jim and his team, Aaron and his team, the history that we had had together, and having a client, Bruce Campbell, who was willing to just say, go for it. Now, the one thing that I found out early on was that there was a difference when you went to get a license for a film. If I want to do something live at Aaron's Theater, I go through a theatrical license. If I want to do something on a virtual, I have to get a streaming license. And I quickly found out there was way two different paths I had to go down. And I know we're going to talk about this as this segment goes on. But the reason it took us so long to launch Watch With really was just because we had to negotiate license deals. We had to go to these big studio houses and say, hey, you've never heard of us before. You have never worked with us before, but please give us your streaming license and let us do an event that's never happened.
Allow us to take this property that's been making you money for decades and just distribute it willy-nilly on this new thing called, Stellar and in the online event world. By all means, what's the possible slowdown there?
So Jim, if you remember, I was up in Ventura County and I was on a run. And I was trying to think about different things to do with this platform. And I had it in my head. And I was bouncing ideas off you, including what we were going to call it and how we were going to frame it. And I was also doing the same thing with Aaron. Like I was bouncing ideas off of him. We came up with a couple of different early on names for the platform, Star Watch, Watch with the Stars, like all these different things. And I think it was then that we realized, hey, it didn't just have to be a film, and it didn't just have to be a film actor. It could be a television show. It could be a sporting event, maybe a big event that had already happened. It could be a writer, a producer, a director. Basically, we wanted to do an event where you were participating along with a creator. I like the word creator. Because and so once again, my brilliant wife, I remember I was at home and I said to her, man, we just need to come up with a clever name. We're watching something along with someone. She goes, babe, why don't you just call it Watch With? I go, Watch With, ... What do you think? She goes, I love it. I called Jim immediately. I'm like, Jim, I know it's a little easy. What do you think? Watch With ... He's like, done.
I mean, it tells you what it is.
It tells you what it is. You're watching something with someone. Right. So I did a couple of quick searches to make sure there wasn't another platform that had the same thing going on. And I also discovered that really we were the only ones doing what we were doing, which was very exciting. There were networks that were experimenting with co-watch concepts like, hey, watch this half-hour sitcom with your family who lives 3,000 miles across the country.
Totally different thing.
But that was a totally different thing.
Like watch parties, that concept. Yeah.
And
remember
that's
what that app became popular for a brief period of time, the Watch Party Netflix app?
Party. Yeah. And I think the reason why the studios started opening their doors was because I was able to say to them, this is how our product is different. Mm-hmm. You are actually interacting with a creator, and they're going to really break the fourth wall or let you behind the curtain. And as a viewer, you're going to experience this like you've never experienced it before. And as we started pitching it to the studios that way, they started really getting what the message was. We got our first deal on the books. And then the three of us and the rest of our teams really just held our breaths and said, okay, we're going to put this first one up and see what happens. And I don't want to ruin the end of the story, but it went really well.
It did go very well. Aaron, what else would you add to the sort of origin story part of that? I'm sure there were a couple of things that internal conversations or what have you that were pretty interesting on your side too.
Yeah, I mean, the most interesting conversation is actually the one that Craig already spoke of, and that was that his wife was the one that actually came up with the name, and he called me and he goes, Monique's got it. It's it. We're done. We're good. We got it. So thank God you've got someone so creative in your house to helping us out as well. But what I loved most about it was, or the other aspect of this project is it was as hard as it is to get the deal and the license done is, now we got it, and how are we going to get it out there? And I think that's kind of where, me as the third of this group, kind of comes into play as well. And because we were launching this during such a unique time in the United States, or around the world, I should say, with COVID and being shut down, and theaters and arenas and clubs not being able to do live entertainment, this is why Craig came up with this idea. But we also wanted to support all of those buildings and venues and places that were closed and that needed to figure out a way to get revenue. So we put together a marketing model that allowed us to have marketing support and partners from all over the country and really the world. And we can get to that later, but all over the country. And so what we would do is we would partner with a local nonprofit, performing arts center, theater, whatever it may be. And we would say, if you help us promote the show, meaning if you send out an e-blast and tell all of your patrons that we're doing this, you can then sell tickets to our show. You will get a commission that will support and benefit your organization, so you can earn some money while we're our stages are dark, and it allows you to keep moving forward and progressing and engaging your fans. And I think that unique aspect of how we started promoting it was also unique to this situation, and probably wouldn't have come out of any situation other than, you know, COVID or a pandemic. And a lot of kudos to, you know, Jim and Craig and everyone. There's a huge team behind this now, but that, you know, we were able to collaborate so well to come up with a model that not only was enjoyable for people, but helped support so many hurting people during a rough time as well. And so that was something that really resonated with me and made me just feel good about the project. Like, you know, we were actually making an impact as well.
Aaron, I want to also add to that something that you did that I thought was beautiful and brilliant, which was when you purchased tickets, you were also able to make a donation to help the venues as well.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's true. We added, there's a company called NEVA, which is an independent venue association. And this is an organization that has come out of COVID basically. And it's comprised of agents and managers and venues and promoters and people in live entertainment touring that have all come together to try and support each other and in this cause. And it helped get a bill passed in the United States called Save Our Stages. And we were able to raise a bunch of money to support that organization as well. So thank you for mentioning them. That was cool.
Yeah, of course.
The first event was in, you know, actually, look, I just want to say, like, it's a really robust concept because it doesn't, as you said, Craig, it doesn't have to be a movie actor. It doesn't have to be a movie. It could be just about anything. It's really funny because I've talked to a lot of people who've either seen, who saw the first version of it, or they've heard about it and they're asking me questions, and they come up with ideas and ways of using the watch where they say, could it be a musical? Could it be a soundtrack? Could it be? And I'm like, sure, it could. You know, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. And I think it also is just as a platform, robust enough to be done different ways. And I think there's 100 other ideas like it, right? That people could develop on their own.
Absolutely.
It's just, you know, in a way, this is something you couldn't really do in person because the connection between the people watching the show and the let's say the star that you're watching with is actually closer. I mean, if you had, what do we have in January? 3,000 people watching.
Yes.
If you had 3,000 people in the Tobin Center or something like that, there'd just much bigger distance between you and the celebrity. You know?
And
our capacity is only 2,000, so you wouldn't even be able to get that many people.
yeah,
there you go.
So you're limited, but you're absolutely right. It makes you feel better. And I think to your point, sorry, Craig, before I finish,
no,
there was something else that you guys included in that. And not only was Bruce, you know, basically watching the movie with you, who's sitting in front of the screen, but, you know, he was answering questions from the fans at the time on the side in the chat bar. And that in itself, that aspect is extremely unique too. I mean, when was the last time you got to ask your favorite star or, you know, someone who you really admired a personal question and get them to answer in such a short window? So I thought that was a super cool aspect that engaged the fans and gave a new experience to people.
Yes, that is exactly what I was going to say. That chat function really added value. It's a free function. It comes, you know, Stellar was brilliant to include that. It's a free function. It's part of your ticket. So we opened the lobby early. Well, I should talk for Stellar as a whole. They opened their lobby early before events. And
well,
I should
say earlier, what's a lobby? You have a lobby on this, Craig? What are you talking about? It's not a physical place.
So, you know, I like to pat myself on the back and say that I got to be involved with Stellar early on. Jim opened the doors to me with some of my other artists, including the Fab Four. And we were doing shows with Stellar really when they were still beta testing. Yeah. And one of the things that I was so excited about was that you could join in on the fun before the show started. So if it was a 6 o'clock event, you could come into the lobby at 5 or 5:30 and chat with people who are also excited about that concert or also excited about that event. And you would notice. So I want to use Evil Dead 1 as an example. I opened my computer an hour early because I wanted to see what would happen. And there were people in there talking about what year they saw the movie Evil Dead and where they saw it. And you know, how many times have you seen it? And they were giving each other little bits of trivia. And then we ran our own trivia, which is a little something fun that we could do to give the fans a better experience. So Bruce Campbell has his own touring game show. I'm the agent for his game show. It's called Last Fan Standing. And Steve Sellery, and who is Bruce's partner in the game show, was kind enough to give us the trivia, or some of the trivia, from Last Man Standing. So now you're in the lobby. You're chatting with your friends. You're doing trivia. I mean, it's fun before the event even starts. We want to give people a real bang for their buck so that by the time the event starts, they feel immersed already in Bruce world, in Evil Dead world, in pop culture horror world. And I think we did a heck of a job doing that.
You know, I think that's the great use when it comes to online events. If you're not thinking about the pre-show, you're missing the opportunity to manage the energy up, right? Like we've seen this with all of the better events that people do, or the one, I shouldn't say better, I should say the ones where people have kind of had a few go rounds and they've learned how to put a little more sort of production value into their events. They deliver something 20, 30 minutes, maybe even an hour leading up to the event that harnesses that energy you were just talking about it, and also just kind of like allows it to just peak at the moment when the show starts and people are just so fired up to see it. It's such a difference. It's such a difference maker.
And I want to continue on with regard to the chat. As the event started, I had it up on 2 screens. The great thing about Stellar, you can watch it on your device. You can watch it on the Stellar app. So I had my smart television up with the Stellar app, and then I had my laptop open so that I could also follow the chat.
Right.
And what I really was excited about was reading the chat and seeing how people were reacting to Watch With, because it was our first event, and having them say things like, what a fun way to watch the movie, or, oh, I can't wait until they do this with other films, or wow, you know, I'm learning something. I've been a Bruce fan for my whole life, and I learned something tonight that I never knew. So that was also really cool, being able to see that happen in real time.
Yeah, so the short story is that the first event was a very popular, big success. I think all of us were very excited about the door that it opened, and there's another one coming up. Evil Dead 2 is coming up on the 24th.
24th, yep.
Yeah, so by all means do that. Well, let's talk now, and please do if you have questions or any kind of anything you'd like for us to address. Put it in the chat, and I think it'd be good fodder for us to talk about. But the topic of this conversation, really, the goal of this conversation is to cultivate, is to help people who are thinking through this idea of an online event franchise, an online event concept that they can keep going, to think through how to do that. And so Watch With is one such thing. But when we think about what that would be, and what would be helpful to people, what leaps to mind for you? Either of you guys who want to join in?
Aaron, you want to go first?
You know, it's funny when you say Watch With or live streaming. I mean, the first thing that actually comes to mind to me is like a YouTube channel and what, you know, these TikTokers have been doing, and you know, creating content. And that's partially what we're attempting to do with basically cultish or, you know, brands that, you know, are very recognizable. We're trying to reinvent it and present it in a new way, because these are brands that express themselves in certain ways. They make you feel a certain way, and it's going to attract a certain audience. But the ideas behind that are limitless. So, you know, I love the creativity behind it. But, you know, the truth is I don't think this is unique in the sense that I think there are people that have been creating content online and streaming and trying to do this for a long time. It's just about the format and finding the right model. So for me, I actually think of the TikTokers out there and those YouTubers who are out there, and other people just like us doing professional talks and trying to educate people. I think all of these are unique ways to, you know, stream events, and I think all of them are viable options.
I think when you mentioned something about building on a fan base. I think this is a big advantage if you've got it. You know, centering an ongoing franchise on a group of people that have a particular affinity is a good way to think about it, I would say. But I will add, though, that I've seen people and the guys who do Killer Musical, for example, who had the first season last fall, and they're looking at what they're going to do in the future. It wasn't an existing franchise, but they made a franchise because it was a multi-part series that people would tune in and see on demand. And they did it all, you know, during COVID and everything. And I think what they've done is they've created a franchise in a very different way. It wasn't based on an existing fan base. It was based on new material. So you don't have to, that's one way, you know, basing it on an existing fan base like the Evil Dead or Bruce Campbell or just the horror world is one way to do it, but you can also find one, create one, and create a thread through that as well.
Yeah, the creativity is endless, and that's almost the beauty of it.
Well, Aaron called me up a couple weeks ago and said, and I won't name any particular names, but he said that there was a significant celebrity who had written a children's book. And what could we do? And I said, why don't we bring him on the Watch With platform, have him read his book to the audience, and we could put up frame by frame the artwork of his book. So basically, it's like he's reading it, you're seeing the book in the frame, just like you're seeing the film in the frame with our movies. Now you're seeing the book and the art in the frame, and you're getting to hear a very A-list celebrity read their original children's book. It gives the celebrity a chance also to sell books and to show the audience that they have a different side to them. So again, that's not, when we created this and talked about, watching movies, this wasn't at the genesis of the idea, but we knew that this could carry in so many directions. And, other ideas that we've talked about, classic sporting events, the big boxing matches, the big, just like the big events that have happened over time, being able to rebroadcast those, but have very interesting people do the commentary. Because I think a big part of getting folks excited about Watch With is, who is your host for the evening?
Right.
Who is it that's giving you the play-by-play? And I always think, you have somebody who's a little bit more straightforward, athletic, knowledgeable, and then you have sort of your funny person, and they're bouncing off each other, and you're watching this great event. I mean, to me, that's worth the price of admission right there. It's different.
Shaq and anybody. I think you're just,
right.
Shaq and anybody. Shaq with anything.
Right.
We could have Shaq and I don't know. I'm trying to think of the most serious movie I can watch the 3 Days of the Condor with Shaq. It doesn't matter. It's just still Shaq. It's still good.
So that's an important component to what we're talking about is, and we have to do that job before we greenlight an event. We have to talk to whomever's going to be the host and say to that person, this is what the expectations are. You don't have to be Bruce Campbell and talk nonstop. Okay. He's one of a kind in that regard, but you do have to talk, and maybe you have to figure out like, okay, I'm showing a 90-minute film. I want to give a bunch of beats here, then let the audience watch, these next 3 scenes. Then I want to give some beats here. And then I want to tell a great story. I'm going to pause the film and tell you a story that you've never heard about what went on set that day. It is going to blow your mind. And that moment is just like Watch With wrapped in a bow,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Shaq and Citizen Kane. Let's do that one.
You're on the Shaq thought.
I don't know.
I
just think that would be great. All right. And when we talk about this, we talk about infinity. I'm sorry, affinity, not infinity. Affinity is so powerful, right? So the great thing about Evil Dead and Bruce Campbell is it comes pre-installed with people who really care about it. Just really, really care about it. And that can be used in a lot of different ways. And I think it's really important for us to tell the chainsaw story as an example of how you can leverage affinity, not just to get an audience there, but to go beyond just getting them there to see the stream. And I don't know. I think I know the more or less the origin story here, but I think it's Aaron's tale to tell.
Oh yes, this is Aaron's tale to tell.
I don't even know where it really came from, is the truth. I mean, the way it started is on the first Evil Dead Watch With, we decided to do and offer the artwork as an exclusive add-on, so that people wanted to buy a poster of the artwork from the live stream, they could. Well, that portion of it became successful, so we started, as we were launching Evil Dead 2, we decided, okay, what else can we offer? What are the fans really attracted to? And obviously, we realized they wanted something unique, so we just started brainstorming of like what items or what physical items would be associated with Bruce or Evil Dead that would resonate with the fan. So we came with this idea to offer one VIP package that included a whole bunch of stuff, including a meet and greet and so forth, but with an autographed chainsaw. Because what better references Evil Dead and Bruce than a chainsaw? And so Craig presented it, and Bruce was like, "All right, yeah, sure, I'll sign it, no problem." And so we did. So I listen. I've never heard of anyone making a VIP package and including an autographed chainsaw in it, but I thought it was super unique. And the truth is it sold within 5 minutes of going on the on sale. So obviously the idea worked.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Did you even mention the package price? Because that was the kicker for me. It was very clear that we underpriced that, but it was. I think
we priced it at $2,500.
$2,500, yeah.
$2,500, and it sold in an hour. And so then you say like, that was too cheap. And that's really the power of affinity, right? Like, is this idea that obviously it's not. I'm sure it's a good chainsaw. I'm sure it'll be a perfectly fine chainsaw, but it's not worth $2,500 as a chainsaw. It's just imbued with unique value because of the nature of the live event. John K has a question that I think is really goes to the heart of this. He's talking about the fact that it isn't just sticking a couple of cameras in front of an existing event and saying this is your online event. It's really about thinking through what the online watching experience would be. And in the case of Watch With, it's very clear that it's really it's an event that's designed to be online. But in general, when we talk about online events, it's the whole thought process around how does this become a great experience for the person watching at home or wherever they are watching online. That to me is a fundamental design part of any event that you would do online.
Yeah, I want to talk. Look, let's think for a moment. A new movie comes out, right? Kong versus Godzilla just came out.
For example.
You're not gonna put something like that on Watch With because it doesn't make sense to watch a new movie on this platform. That's not why we're doing this. The subtext of what we're doing here is you've seen this film a lot of times. You know the words by heart. You know the beats and the moments in the film. I mean, think about the most classic, iconic horror, sci-fi, comedies, whatever they are. Everyone, I want you to think about that movie or those movies that whenever it comes on TV, if you're scrolling by if you're on your channel guide and that film is on, it's kind of like what people say about that movie, A Christmas Story, which, by the way, we need to talk about. That movie, A Christmas Story, like if it's right. November or December and you're right. Channel surfing and A Christmas Story is on, you're going to click on it for at least a half hour.
At least a scene or two. Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So those are the kind of films, when I originally came up with the concept, that's what I had in mind, right? It was, I know this movie so well that I want to watch it through a different set of eyes. And again, I don't want to throw out a bunch of films. I mean, I could talk about some of my favorites, anything by Mel Brooks, of course. But you take a film like that where you know all the words and you know all the beats. It's like, okay, yes, I know I could go watch it on Netflix, or I know I could, I probably have a DVD copy of it. I don't know if I still have a DVD player, but I have a DVD of it somewhere. So I could go and watch it that way. But what if instead of watching History of the World on DVD, I could have Mel Brooks on my screen watching the film with me and saying the jokes and pointing out the flaws in the production. Oh, do you see there? You see how the guy walks in the back of the screen? That wasn't supposed to be there. Those moments, right? That is what Watch With is for. That is what we are about. And not just film. We're talking to some pretty high profile television folks, showing a pilot episode of a classic show and really walking through what it took to get that show off the ground. I can't say it enough. The possibilities really are endless, but we are a platform for classic material, cult material, stuff that's been around the block, stuff that's beloved. If you want to see something new, we're not for you. That's not what we're doing here.
It occurs to me listening to all of that, one of the things that's important about it and important about online events, and I think part of what we want to make sure and address today is anybody who's got any sort of idea about an online franchise they want to create, like as an online event, one of the key things is interactivity. One of the key things is engagement between the person who's watching it and the person that's delivering it. And it occurs to me again, going back to the example of this, if Bruce Campbell were on a stage doing the same thing, you as a member of the audience, even if they all could fit in the building, wouldn't have anywhere near the engagement, that you've got. Like, strangely enough, even though you're there, you'd have a totally different and much reduced, level of engagement. But it seems like that, putting Watch With aside, it seems like that's one of the key things, in addition to, how it's presented visually. That's one of the key things with an online event and an online franchise that's going to be successful long-term, is like, I'm part of it as an audience member.
Right. Absolutely. And again, I applaud Stellar for the job you've done in being able to invite the audience into the world of the band or the comedian or the performer, of the creator. I mean, it's like one big watch with. Sometimes it's sing with, sometimes it's dance with, but Stellar's done a really wonderful job about letting the audience be a part of the night. And think about it. What is it that our artists miss the most? They miss the fan engagement. They miss the, that the applause. We were joking at the top of this about the applause. Oh, there's no applause, blah, blah, blah. But think about how long it's been since our bands and comedians and performers and creators have had that room full of live applause that they've staked their career on for so many years. And so how do we do something that's going to make them feel like that again? And how, vice versa, are we going to do something for the audience that makes them feel connected back to what they're used to seeing on stage? And that is really what we are trying to do here with our virtual events.
Here's a good question. Here's something that, if we can provide some help and guidance for people who are thinking about this, I think it could be very valuable, which is, how do you start something like this? If you have a concept, I think getting it off the ground and having a proof of concept gave us the confidence to keep going and to invest a little more in time and everything into it. What would either of you, what would you say, Aaron? I'll start with you, actually. What would you say about, how do you get something like this off the ground? If you've got an idea, and you've got the basic skills and everything in order to do it, how do you go from zero to...
it's complicated. Yeah, listen, it's a complicated process, but the truth is, you got to break it down and figure out what step 1 is, and not worry about step 100 for the moment. So if you've got this concept, I would write down what that concept is and how that works. And sorry about that. Offices.
Actually, it's me calling.
Is it? Dang it! I told you, Craig, I'm on a thing. Fortunately for everyone on this call, is that because we are in entertainment and this was our idea, we were 1, 2, 3 steps removed from who we needed to call to kind of connect the dots. And Craig having an idea, he knew that Jim was a content creator and had this amazing Stellar platform, had the ability to sell tickets and do all these things. And and since we promote and had worked with Bruce so much in the past, it was kind of a natural, I think, for Craig to call us on that level as well. But the truth is I think you've got to start with step 1. What is the concept? I mean, it's no different than any business. You're going to have to write a business plan, and you're going to have to, put your ideas together, and you're going to have to make a proper pitch and figure out who you need to get to sell your idea, is the truth.
Craig, what would you add to that?
No, that's great. I mean, I'm all about teamwork. And I knew right out of the gate that I needed to bounce the idea off people who knew me, who would be willing to tell me if it was a dumb idea or a silly idea, but at the same time would be willing to back my play if they saw that there was, light at the end of the tunnel. And so for me, it was about conception, bouncing the idea off people I trust. And then once I knew I had something, figuring out what I had to do to bring it to life. And for me, in this particular case, it was basically cold calling movie studios. Now, I call myself, I'm a music agent, a talent agent, whatever you want to call me. I've been an agent for over 20 years, and I was doing things I'd never done before. I was making phone calls that I'd never made before, but I had enough trust in myself and in the idea that I was willing to do that. So I figured out, like Aaron said, figure out who the first person you have to go to is. They'll probably send you to another person, and they'll send you to another person. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let myself get bounced around until somebody listens to me, because I know I'm charming enough that once I get them on the phone and sit them down and explain what this is. But if I had gone to them with a half-baked idea, that would have done nobody any good, because then I would have had the final executive on the phone and I would have gone, I want to show one of your movies on a platform and sell tickets to it. Oh, you mean you want, like,
that's called a movie theater.
You got to have a business plan and write it out and have a proper pitch and make sure that you know exactly what you're talking about and why it's important, So, listen, it's like it's like every business, it's just what it is. You gotta break it down and figure out how to get from step to step and don't get discouraged.
I would add that whole thing that Craig talked about. Aaron, somebody really wants to talk to you. The whole thing
about
that Craig talked about enlisting support from people that you know and trust and that can help you. It is really important. I have this feeling that there are lots of good entrepreneurial ideas and online event ideas that sort of die on the vine because they never leave the head of the person who thought of them. When in reality, they may well know people that at least are a starting point for how to, as you say, develop the idea more, but also then what would it take to actually bring it to life? And that'd be one of the biggest pieces of advice I could give people, is that, you shouldn't think of it as something you have to do on your own, because it might not be possible for you to do it on your own. That might not be, right. And even if it were, it's probably not the easiest way or the most fun way to bring it into being. And my biggest piece of advice is do everything you can to get it out there in some form, not a perfect form, because by no means was the first version of this perfect, or the first version of anything I've ever done entrepreneurially perfect, Right. It's the process of getting to the point where reality can actually become your teacher, right? As opposed to just you polish the idea in your head forever and ever and ever. You're going to learn more in one day of getting into the market and actually seeing what people do than you do in a year of just thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it.
It's incredible to look at the evolution of anything. If you look at anything and you look at the evolution from the moment of its inception, especially something you follow along, right? And you watch it when its moment of inception until current, and then you go back and watch the inception again, knowing what the current product is, and you go, oh my gosh, I forgot what it looked like when it first came on the scene. And I think that we've already done a great job between WatchWith's 1 and 2 of, with our sellable packages, with Aaron and Chris's promotion, with what the Stellar team is building on their end, with our ideas for, there's certain things we can't talk about yet because they're still in development, but we're developing things for this platform that's going to be revenue makers for the artists. And you think about an artist goes to a show, they're not just making money because they're singing into a microphone. They're selling T-shirts. They're doing meet and greets. They're doing other things at the concert, right? We want to do the same thing. We don't want you to just, and now I'm talking to the talent, by the way. We don't want the talent to sign on just to be on screen, talk, and call it a day. We want them to want to come back and have a great experience. We want the studio space to feel great. We want the production team to look, to be warm and inviting. And we want there to be packages so that the artists who may not be making their normal money right now because concerts are closed down or other things are closed down, we want to give them an opportunity to make other revenue streams. And I think, again, we've done such a great job just in the few months since our last event of shaping this thing to where when we are a year from now, Jim, I think we're going to look back at the inception and go, hey, you remember what it looked like in January of 2021 compared to how it looks now?
It's so true. And the way I would frame that, it reminds me of, I've been around long enough that I was in the industry, the internet industry in the very early days, in the sort of late 90s, 97 or so. And it was a phase of the internet's history where whatever you were doing at a certain point in, say, 97 or 98 or whatever, looked way better than what you were doing 6 months before that, and worked way better. And that was better than what was 6 months before that. And if you compared what you had on the internet in 99 or 2000 to 1996, it would be, almost laughable. You'd say, can you believe that's how our website looked? Can you believe that that's all that our website could do? And I think we're at a similar point with online events where we should be able to look back on things that happened just a few months ago, certainly a year ago, and say, it was a spirited effort, but we had a lot to learn, and we're still, moving up that trajectory. And by the way, that means that it's an area just rich with opportunity. So if you're out there thinking about how you can participate, remember that we're on one of these growth paths, that what you're doing now is going to be superseded in quality by what we do in the near future. And you shouldn't be too sensitive about that. You shouldn't, if you wait around to kind of get perfect, where you're still going to be part of a moving target as this industry grows and matures.
Yeah, I was going to say, I couldn't agree with your statements more. And I think that's how, I live my life is continually getting better and learning from the mistakes. And, listen, like you said earlier, nothing is perfect the first time you do it, but the more you do it, the better you get. And I think that's an important thing to remember, is that, we're all trying to put something unique and get it out there to the public and make sure that it's special, but it's got to evolve too. And that, the people and the patrons and the customers and the people who want to see this are going to tell us what they want. And it's our responsibility to change and adjust and pivot accordingly so that we can give and present the best presentation possible.
And just remember the example we used earlier about how when this all started, it was people sitting in front of their Facebook Live strumming a guitar. Fast forward to where we are now on the concert side of this. Think about the concerts that Stellar has produced and the quality and the sound and the look. I use examples of my own artists, and I use the Fab Four as one of the examples. They have done, I think, 13 Stellar concerts. No two have been the same.
Yep.
They've done incredible production value. They've had black and white concerts. They've used green screens. They did one where they looked like they were in the Cavern Club in Liverpool. So my point in bringing that up is, even just in a year, we went from people strumming a guitar with terrible sound to really high-class virtual concert events. So I applaud how far we've come in only that amount of time.
John has another question about food and beverage tie-ins with Stellar events or other online events. Absolutely. We've had a bunch of examples of people doing wine packages that went with events. I haven't seen anybody do a real-time Grubhub or Uber Eats incentive, though that's a really good idea. I've heard people talk about it, but I haven't seen anybody really execute on it yet. But I have seen a lot of food and beverage package premiums on top of the ticket, which work really well because you've got another way of making the event real for somebody who's at home, right? So what I can tell you is that compared to the uptake for in-person events on premiums to the ticket, online events do better. I think if you have some really, our Chainsaw is a good example of it, but just in general, if you can come up with compelling add-ons, whether it's a merchandise item, food and beverage, even a donation, something like that, a commemorative item, there's a lot of people, all they got to do is pick a different thing and it's theirs, right? So would you guys agree?
And we're working on all that, right? But these are the ideas that we bounce off each other every week. Right. What else can we do? I have ideas for when we do start doing films that have food and beverage in the film itself. And there are companies that I work with, and they actually ship out packages of high-end food and beverage. And there are ways to do exactly what you're talking about, where with one click, that ticket gets sent to this other company, and they have to fulfill now, 100 of these boxed food and beverage packages. But the food and beverage in the package matches the food and beverage in the film, and we include a little recipe, maybe for something that was made in the film. So all of these ideas are in discussion, and I love that the audience is thinking along these lines too. We really want to,
Yeah, there was a great example of this that the Geffen did with Bollywood Kitchen, where you received a box of ingredients and a shopping list for the fresh ingredients. Yeah, and the chef, it was a great event. The chef who was doing the show was guiding you through the cooking of it. The first thing he had you do was make your cocktail, which was an awesome thing to do. But then as you were going into the moments where you're doing a little bit of cooking for a few minutes, there was a cut into a Bollywood movie clip, and then you come back and then you cook the next part. That was a tremendous amount of fun. Stories, Bollywood clips, you're cooking the ingredients that come to you in the box. It was a lot of fun.
That's great.
Great ideas.
I was gonna say, I've seen some chef things that are like that, where they send you the ingredients and then they cook it live and so forth when a 3-course meal. I've also seen wine tasting things where all of a sudden you'll get 6 half bottle carafes, and you get on a Zoom with 100 people and a sommelier and go through the tastes and what it is and where this was from, and South France, Bordeaux.
Right.
Craig knows about that stuff. Little less on my side, but there's tons of opportunities, and the creativity is the only barrier.
Can I just say though, we're always looking for ideas. So, we want the talent and the managers and agents. We want people to come to us. We're hopeful that moments like this that we're having right now get out to the general public. We want other people's wheels to turn. Aaron has great relationships with agents and managers. Jim, you and your team, think about the wealth of relationships that you have with all the business you're doing. Obviously, I've been in the game a long time. I want people to see this and go, Aaron and I had a chat with an agent last week who had 2 or 3 ideas that he brought to us. And I think actually some of those are going to come into play for Watch With. And so my point is, yes, we have created this thing, but we want it out there. We want other people thinking about it, coming to us, breathing it, coming up with their own creativity. This is an open platform. It's a blank canvas. We're all painting it together. So,
well, on that note, unfortunately, we have to go. We didn't cover every question, unfortunately, but we did run over time because this was such a fun conversation. So we've got on April 24th, we've got Watch With Evil Dead 2, Watch With Bruce Campbell. That's on Stellar that you can buy. Anything else you guys that have coming up that you want to talk about?
We're actually not allowed to talk about specific. Just it has to do with the license agreements.
Other than Watch With, anything else? Anything in Tobin you want to talk about?
Oh, Aaron.
Support your local live music venues across the board. It's been an extremely difficult year with COVID, and if you know someone who's in the restaurant, entertainment, hospitality field, when you're vaccinated and feel comfortable, go out and support them. They need it.
Awesome. I love that. Also want to say that if you would like to get a demo of Stellar or learn more about it, go to workwithstellar.com. You can either actually just try the platform yourself. It's an open platform. You can sign up, use it, do $1 million show. You don't even have to talk to us. But if you do want to talk to us, you can get a custom demo of it just by clicking on the link on the website, workwithstellar.com. And we would be delighted to do that with you. Craig, do you think you could play us off?
Yeah.
I want to thank my guests, Aaron Zimmerman and Craig Newman, for talking about this. We hope you got something out of it. We enjoyed this conversation, and I think I'm just going to throw it back to Craig to sign us off.
I just want to say that my family, the Newman family, we've performed 55 neighborhood and virtual concerts since last March. My daughter, Sadie, who's 9, my wife, Monique, and myself, we are the Newman Family Sing-Along. You can check us out every Saturday on Facebook Live, and that's at my Facebook page, /CraiggyFresh. We do it at 3 o'clock West Coast time, the Newman Family Sing-Along, singing as a family, covering all your favorite songs. So come join us. Until next time, folks, this is Craigie Fresh coming to you from the pad, live on Stellar. Stellar, 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 where all your dreams come true.